That's right folks, my 1982 Red Hilux is back, and while she's been a little neglected over the last few years, it's time to get her back on the road.
Well, I'm super excited because I finally get to show you guys the build on my 1982 first generation Hilux. And here she is. The poor old girl's been sitting in the back corner of the shed for a good 6 months while I've been working on other things like the pony and the solid axle swapped Hilux. But now it's time to get her back out and hook back into the build.
Unfortunately, the old girl's in a bit of a state. She's been through a lot over the last few years. But I thought it was time we have a look at where she's at, what we've done over the last year, and what we plan to do to her. This is a ground up rebuild, and to say she needs a lot of work is an understatement. But with a bit of persistence and perseverance, let's see what we can do.
I've been slowly chipping away at this thing over the last couple of years in my spare time in the shed, but to be honest, the poor old girl's been sitting for the last 6 months under a tarp. But now, it's finally time to hook back into it. Before we get there though, let me take you back to last year, where I filmed a whole bunch of different things on my phone so you can get up to speed on what we got planned for the big girl. Let's get into it.
If we want to get a bit Hilux nerdy for a second, this is technically a third generation Hilux. But the reason I'm referring to it as a first gen was because it's part of the series that was the first of four-wheel drive models to come out. There were a bunch of Hiluxes that were released before this one, but all of them were two-wheel drive. We bought this car back in 2016, I think it was, to take to Cape York. We bought it in cams, actually off the original owner. He engine converted it when he bought it, after he bought it. It was an 18R petrol originally, and then he put in the 2.2 litre diesel and a 4-speed to tow his caravan, which is an interesting choice, but anyway, is what it is. So we did the Cape with that diesel in it, and then after that, it got shipped back down to Sydney and sat in the car park for a while, and then my mate Renault bought it. Took it up to Port Macquarie as a bit of a beach rig and a run around, and then he was going to sell it, so he asked me if I wanted to buy it, and I said yeah. So went up to Port Macquarie, bought it with my brother, and we drove it back down to Sydney, and it pretty much just sat in the shed ever since then. I drove it around for a bit, but the engine was using like a litre of oil every couple of days, and it wouldn't stay in any of the gears. It was pretty tired and fed. She keeps jumping out of gear. So thought about what to do with it, and eventually decided it'd be good to do a bit of a resto mod on it as well. So for those of you asking what I am going to do with this, it's not going to be a super capable crawler on 35s and stuff like that. I've already got two of them behind you to do that, so I don't need to do that with this one. What I am planning to do though is that, yeah, as I said, a bit of a resto mod. I want to sort of get it nice, period correct, and make it look nice. Something you can drive around town in, but still, chuck a fridge in the tub and go for a camp on the weekends. The engine. So this is a 3RZ. It's a 2.7 litre petrol out of a later model Hilux. Now, I know what you're thinking, why didn't you go diesel? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. A lot of people put in later model Hilux diesels, but they're super expensive. It's kind of hard to find one. I got this engine, box, wiring, transfer, pretty much everything needed for $1,500, so I thought it was a pretty good deal. And also, I want to learn more about petrols. You can make more power out of them. They go pretty hard. They get a bit of a bad rap for forward driving, but I think you can still make them into pretty capable engines. So I'm keen to learn more about this as I go. This is a really common conversion in the US as well. This Hilux came out as a Toyota pickup in the States, and a lot of guys put these engines in for a bit more power. So there's a fair bit of info out there already. I've started, you can see here, this is the engine wiring harness. I've started going through, labeling some stuff that I need. I haven't finished just yet, but I'm sort of working through that as I go. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to learn more about petrols. So the 3RZ engine obviously came out of a later model Hilux, so it's got a few more electronics than what the old RN46 had. So this is the engine loom from the 3RZ. So right now I'm just figuring out what wires I need to join up to basically the body harness of the RN46. So that's where there's just a lot of time in figuring out which wires I need. As you can see, I'm just labeling bits and pieces as I go along and grouping them together. The way I'm doing that is with a wiring diagram like this, which tells me all the stuff I need to know, which wires go where. There's not actually, that might look a little bit confusing, and it confuses me, but you don't actually need a lot to make it run. There's only a few wires, because a lot of those wires you'll find will power other things, and they're all kind of grouped together. So it's actually relatively straightforward once you spend the time figuring it out. Once I've figured out what wires I need for this, I can then go inside the cab, pull the dash out, figure out things like ignition wiring and all that sort of stuff
from the cab and join them up to this harness, and hopefully that should be enough to make it turn over at least, but we'll see how we go. Righto, this is just a bit of a test to see if I'm on the money. How good's that? Engine turns over via the key, which is awesome. It means that the wiring for the ECU is correct. That's really good. I'm stoked with that. Now, obviously there's heaps more to do. It's one thing to turn an engine over, it's another to get it started, but at least it means I'm on the right track. The other stuff I can figure out later with the wiring. And then in here, as you can see, there is a little bit going on. So I've taken the dash out, more wiring stuff basically. So I need a few wires from the body harness that made up to the engine harness so that everything will run nicely. That's kind of where I've been at. That's why the dash is out, because I wanted to mock up the engine install before I took everything apart. So that's pretty much where things are at the moment. I wanted to sort of get it roughly so that it would turn over and then I can take the body off. I found this too when I was pulling the dash out. This is one of the original stickers we used when we took it up to the Cape for the first time. That's pretty cool. It's probably the only sticker left, I'd say. But as you can see, there is a lot of work to do. So really got to hook in and do it. There's plenty more to do. If you've got any tips, by the way, if you've taken on a build like this before and you came across some things you want to let me know of, chuck them in the comments below and I'll be sure to check them out. It's not a quick project because I'm doing a lot of it in the shed by myself and I'm learning a lot as I go. So it's been a pretty fun experience, and I'm keen to hopefully get her back out on the tracks one day. Not quick, but one day. Hey guys, still down here in lockdown. As you can probably tell, I need a haircut. It's been a little while, but anyway, been ticking off a few little things on the Lux. I say little because it's a huge project and I've just sort of been tinkering away at it. One of the things I'm doing at the moment though is cutting out the old floor. So it's pretty rusted, particularly in the front here, and I'm cutting it out in sections so that I don't accidentally cut into the supports under the floor. Once upon a time it did unbolt, but it's just so rusted and tired now, it's just easier to cut it out. Righto, well, just spent a fair bit of time on the grinder. Went through quite a few cut-off wheels, but anyway, so what I've done is cut out the floor in sections to try and preserve the floor supports. Now, there is still floor spot welded onto these supports, but now that I've got access, I can get in here and get rid of some of the spot welds as best I can. And yeah, so I've left these corner sections because they're not too bad. It's just mainly that main bit. So yeah, I'm gonna do some more work with it upside down like this, a whole bunch of stuff on, you know, the bottom sections here, you know, straightening a lot of these out. Just spend a lot of time doing that. Like this section is pretty fed, and then once that's done, oh, here's another bit too. So the guy who had this tub before me, my mate, couldn't get the mounts off the old chassis, so he just plasma cut into the tub. But it's not the end of the world. I'll just probably cut a section out of here and then just get some angle and weld it across again, and then that'll be my new mount. Easy peasy, lemon banana. I mean, to be honest, it probably would have been better to buy a non-genuine new tub online, but where's the fun in that, eh? Plus I'm learning as I go, so that's good. Now come over here. So this is, as you can see, the chassis is not in the best state. A lot of this is surface rust, but yeah, it's a bit, how you going? There is some rust in the body, like down here, which I'll have to fix. There's this old support. Now this had a huge fuel tank on it that was sitting here in this whole section, and this was the support. An old mate who put it in has bolted it down, then proceeded to weld it. So I guess the only thing I can think of is he bolted it in place first and then welded it. But I mean, I feel like if the measurements are right and it's in place, then ¿por qué no los dos? ¿Por qué no los dos? As they say. So I'm gonna cut this out, cut it out here. I'm gonna cut this old battery tray thing. I assume it was for a battery off. This out, and yeah, lots to be done. But yeah, pretty happy with that for a good couple of hours work. Managed to cut that out, and
On to the next job, number 300 of 4,000. How good, eh? Oh, you beauty. This is going to be exciting if I ever get it finished.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the show. Just wanted to cut in and tell you about a ripper deal that's going on right now at 4wheeldrive247.com. If you buy any Snatch clothing product, you can get a second Snatch clothing item half price, which means if you've been waiting to stock up on a brand new Snatch jacket or a puffer vest or a jumper, even a beanie or something like that for winter, now is the time. Because buy one, get the cheaper one half price. All you gotta do is go to 4wheeldrive247.com, jump on it quick, don't miss out.
Righto, so that's what's been going on over the last year or so. Let's have a look at where we're at now and where we're going from here.
So this is quite a big build to undertake, and to be honest, in some areas I'm a little bit out of my depth, for example in panel beating and rust repair, but fortunately that means I'll be able to get in touch with some industry experts to try and get the best advice possible on how to build this thing up properly. That means if you guys at home are interested in undertaking a project like this is the perfect series to watch, because I'm going to be getting a whole bunch of expert information on how to do things right. Firstly, to get this build sorted, but secondly, so you guys can learn and give something like this a go yourself. Today, the plan is I'm going to unbolt this tub wall, and I've got an LM106 dual cab tub over there. I'm going to unbolt the front wall off it and see if I can make it work here. See if I can bolt it back in or what I need to do to try and make it work. How cool is that? An LM106 tub front wall fits in an RN46 tub. Well, this is actually a slightly earlier model tub than what this is. It's an 81. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting nerdy. This is flipped around. So on the LM106, this lip faces outboard, but on this tub, the mounts are inside. So even one of the bolt holes on each side lines up, and then this bit at the bottom, I'm gonna see if I can make that fit in front of the mount, because I have the support that sits under here. It's over there. And then I'm gonna try and make up a plate for it to bolt to. So that is a win. There's still heaps more work. It's just sitting in there at the moment. It's not actually bolted in, but that's awesome. So one thing I thought I'd show you is when you're tackling a project like this, it's gonna take a long time. What a lot of people do is get yourself some of these Glad wrap bags, and then as I've taken things apart, all the bolts that are important, I've just put in here. So this is for the dash and the instrument cluster, and you can do this for any group of bolts that you want or any parts that are important. And that way, when you pull everything apart and put it into a box and put it away, when it comes time to reassemble the vehicle, it's just that little bit easier to put things back together. So this one had a 4-speed gearbox in it. I'm putting in a 5-speed and it's longer. So I need to make up a plate from the original gearbox crossmember to sit underneath where the mount is, because on Hiluxes it's on the transfer case, so it sits further back. So I just want to figure out the best way to mock up a mount for this so I can take this cross member off and get it down to Kinsella's Customs. But in earlier model Hiluxes, like this one in the LM106, this cross member mount here actually bolted directly through the cross member. There's 4 little holes just here, and then in later model Hiluxes, they just moved the plate back. So this is off a KZM 165, which is what my model Hilux is. And this would bolt to the back of the transfer case, cross member here, and then this mount would bolt to the top of this plate like that. So basically, if you can imagine, sat like that on the cross member. What I'm gonna do is try and repurpose this and probably cut a slit in here and slide him in and see if I can line it up so it sits nice and square with this mount. Then I'm gonna burn it in on the cross member so it sits in place, and that means that that'll all line up, and it means I can remove the cross member, take it down to Matt, and he can draw up a whole new custom cross member to suit, and it'll look nice and neat. Here's a handy tip. If your car has rust underneath, put a pair of these on so you don't get rust in your face, because it only happens a couple of times before you start getting angry and throwing stuff. All right, so what I've done here is basically cut a big hole in the side of the cross member so this bit can slide in. You're probably thinking you could just cut this off, but these are actually good to hold on to because it means if I ever blow the transfer case in my other car, I can put the factory cross member back in. Anyway, sorry, getting nerdy. What I've done here is, yeah, cut a big old hole so I can slide this in place, and then I'm going to put it back on the vehicle, bolt this in on the transfer case so that lines up, and then tack it in place so that I know it's in a good spot, and then I can pull it off and just weld the bottom enough that I can cut it off later and repurpose this if I need to. The other thing I've done is just at the front of the cross member here, I've just taken a chunk out so that that front double cardan joint for the prop shaft will clear. I may need to cut a little bit more, but it's just so I can get a rough idea. This doesn't have to be super pretty because I'm not reusing this, as long as I can make things work and then give it to Matt so he can make the nice one. I reckon we've had a pretty successful day on the Red Luxie. We got it out of the back corner of the shed. I checked that that front wall on the tub will fit, and it will. I've got a little bit more work to do there, but super stoked that it's in place. And we also got that gearbox cross member sorted, so now this is ready to go down to Matt so he can make the custom one. Next up on this vehicle, the engine and gearbox can come out. I can put them on a stand, tidy them up and get them ready to go back in, and then we can really start on getting the rest of the rebuild done. The body can come off, I can strip all that, then we can start looking at sandblasting and painting the chassis. Oh, I'm super excited. There is so much to do, and if you want to see more of this build, make sure you let us know in the comments below, because the more interest we get in it, more episodes I'm going to be able to film on it. So I'm super keen to hook in and really get this thing back to our former glory. So keep an eye out on our social media pages for more info on the Luxie. Other than that, catch you next time.
Oh, the old girl's taking on water. We've got two of the best looking rigs in Queensland right now. Come back, it'll challenge you. Go. No girly noises when you're coming down.
Oh! Frightened! Gee, mighty wet in here!
This is gnarly. This is the worst I've ever seen it.
Whoa!
Should it be on this bridge?
Shouldn't be on this bridge. That's the answer to that, mate.
Holy dolly.
Go, 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 go.
That's as much fun as you can have with your clothes on.